Enslaved, educated, recruited. This is the story of Mary Bowser. Mary Bowser was born enslaved in Richmond, Virginia. She belonged to the Van Loo family, wealthy, socially connected, and living in the heart of what would become the Confederate capital. When Elizabeth Van Loo's father died in 1843, her mother began freeing the enslaved people the family owned, but Elizabeth went further. She used her inheritance money to buy and free relatives of those who had been enslaved, and she secretly sent Mary north to be educated. In the South, teaching a black person to read was illegal. Literacy was considered dangerous because literacy meant access, and access meant power, and power threatened the entire system. When Mary returned to Virginia after her education in the North, she was arrested. Under Virginia law, educated free black people who lived in free states were not permitted to return. She spent 10 days in jail. Records show she gave the name Mary Jane Henley at her arrest. If she had formally been recognized as a free, educated black woman residing illegally in the state, she could have faced severe penalties, including possibility of being sold back into slavery. But Elizabeth Van Loo intervened. She paid a fine, reportedly for allowing an enslaved person to move about without proper authorization, and secured Mary's release. But the lesson was clear. In Richmond, identity was dangerous, and names could protect you. In the years that followed, Mary would use several. Mary J. Henley and Mary Jones were just two. In April 1861, she married fellow Van Loo servant Wilson Bowser. 4 days later, the Civil War began. Richmond became the capital for the Confederacy, and Jefferson Davis moved into the Confederate White House. Elizabeth Van Loo began to play her part. Mocked in Richmond as Crazy Bet for her distracted behavior, she began quietly building a Union spy network. Her behavior was a cover. General Benjamin Butler authorized her efforts. Invisible ink was used. Couriers carried messages in food baskets, but Elizabeth needed someone that no one would suspect. Mary was recruited. She returned to the world that had once enslaved her, but this time she was under the alias Ellen Bond, where she was placed as a servant inside the Confederate White House. She swept the floors, she dusted the desks, she served guests at functions hosted by Verena Davis. To the Davises, she was help, but her invisibility would be her greatest asset. Because she wasn't there to serve, she was there to gather information. Stay tuned for part 2.